Parashat Noach, the introduction that led to the big flood. So, finally, we're starting this new parasha, Parashat Noach. He singled out, Noach as a man, he singled out as a righteous person that walked in the ways of Hashem, ways of God. And the fact that he is singled out means that everybody else was corrupt. And it says, if we had any doubts, it says it even explicitly, Vatishachet haaretz lifnei Elokim. That means that the land was corrupted before God and was full of Hamas. Hamas, I saw that in English Bible, it says it's called corruption, but in tradition it's a certain form of corruption which has to do with property, like robbing anybody else, takers. It's like the world was filled with takers, people who took from each other, not givers but takers. So there's a general introduction saying that the world became corrupt, and then it says specifically also that it was robbery and that way of taking from not valuing other people's property or dignity or anything that belongs to somebody else, and that is what signed the fate. So things became bad and worse and worse and worse and corrupt, but what really signed the fate and made God, so to speak, give up and actually bring it and say, okay, that's enough, was that specific thing of robbery, of this taking from other people, of not respecting each other's space and property. Given that, the next two verses is like a theme that we see really in Parashat Noach. In this parasha, we haven't seen it before and it doesn't appear after. It's very rare. Is the fact that it also says, there's this new expression. It says, Kol basar. God saw that all flesh was corrupt. It's kind of it doesn't sound good in English, it's Kol basar, but it sounds like it's more than it's an expression that is more than just man. Till now it was always God saw man, and then we explained how man in the beginning was man and woman, and they were divided. But now it's something more general. There's a general term that all flesh. Why doesn't it not keep saying the expression that God said before, that man was corrupt, just like we had it in the last parasha? Why does he now go into some kind of general term of all flesh? What does that even mean? So tradition and also by common sense, kind of what you can see, it's hard to. The only reason why it sounds weird is because we're not used to it, perhaps. But if we try to really understand what the Torah tells us without our prejudices, our bias, being biased, and just looking at the words, all flesh would mean anything that has flesh, means also animals. And this is something that I think the fact that the parasha starts with this idea can really shed light to everything that happened afterwards. Why this whole flood that afterwards happened and the continuation of our parasha can only be understood on the basis of this background. There's something symbiotic between man and the animal world. I mean, if it says that all flesh became corrupt and more of a takers rather than givers, etc., but everything was corrupt. That's the verse, that's the phrase, that's the verb that is used. Then that means that somehow what people do has an effect. We don't know if we can understand it because we can't really measure it in scientific terms. But somehow this world is symbiotic, and somehow when man is corrupt, it has some kind of effect on the animal world, which is like the next step after man, or under it or next to it, whatever. But somehow if people become corrupt, it has that effect on the animal world, and in some way the animals also became more corrupt, became, I don't know, more violent, more of a takers. The way we kind of see them today doesn't mean that is how they always were. The fact is that we can tame animals. That means their behavior can be changed by people educating them. They have that ability to adjust, and we have that power. We can abuse it or not, but somehow people have a power sometimes to tame animals, to have an effect on animals. sometimes more directly, and here it sounds perhaps not directly, even indirectly. The fact that men were corrupt or people were corrupt had that effect also on animals. It also became more corrupt, that became more violent, more whatever it is. And when God says that He keeps saying that all flesh was corrupt, the world was corrupt, all flesh became corrupt, then that can perhaps explain why afterwards, the next time perhaps that we'll meet, the punishment or the way to correct this world is kind of to clean the slate and destroy everything. That is how we can understand why did the animal world or anything else deserve, so to speak, this punishment of dying. Why not only the people who are corrupt?